discuss the Enneagram. It's a last change decision to switch to the Enneagram. So welcome viewers, those viewers that are online. We're doing the Enneagram for a particular reason, because it seems that the Enneagram has been taking off in the US, and is an NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, has been way less popular these days in the US. So we're going to see if we can do a show on the Enneagram. That would then be a continuous stream on. The idea is to have a continuous, to have every Thursday a stream in English about the Enneagram. For those people who know me, I've done the Enneagram a bit longer than the neuro-linguistic programming. I've been busy with neuro-linguistic programming since 2000, but I've done the Enneagram since 1997. Hi Jean, good to see you. I think you're referring to Riso and Hudson. We're going to see. So this is my general complaint about everything in life, is that mediocre people often tend to take over something of interest of me. So I like something, and then all kinds of mediocre people move in. And what they're going to do is that they are going to try to set parameters to make sure that their mediocre in theory, in this case the theory of Riso and Hudson, of the Enneagram, but they will try to create a situation where the mediocrity becomes the norm. But you see it in everywhere. You can see that in neuro-linguistic programming, you can see it in the Enneagram, you can see it in organizational behavior management. Everywhere people find something of value, then mediocre people move in to capitalize on it. And I think it's really, as bad as it sounds. They're basically making shit up in order to make money. But their mediocrity prevents it from being valuable, which is a shame. But then persons like me, we have to defend the original ID. So that's what we're going to do with the Enneagram. So let me... And I'm going to do it simply by looking at the international Wikipedia page. But if you have any questions or remarks, please let me know. I'm more than interested in to hear from you what you think of this topic. So it starts already because they call it the Enneagram of personality. I've never heard of it being spoken of as the Enneagram of personality, but I've looked into it, and it looks as if you can see for other users, see Enneagram, that there are also other users of Enneagram. And I think they named it like this on Wikipedia only to distinguish it from other users of the Enneagram. Although I never found other users of the Enneagram. It's always been this. That's also what they say, of course, or simply the Enneagram. It is an meaning 9, and gramma meaning something written. That is basically a 9-star. It's a model of the human psyche, which is principally understood and taught as a typology of 9 interconnected personality types. And that's all correct. Hard to deny that. Nevertheless, it's also wrong. Hopefully you have seen enough of my work that I uphold that there is no such thing as personality. So that's the first issue, but that's an issue with all Enneagram theories, not just with Riso and Hudson, is that they think that there's something called personality, but personality is a psychological construct. It's something that psychologists thought up, and it doesn't mean that there really is a personality. In reality, there's only the, evolutionary behavioral patterns. Our brain has been formed through evolutions, through evolution. One evolution is enough. A couple of 100,000 years ago, And what happened is that survival patterns somehow enhanced our ability to survive. And we can still find these survival patterns in the form of evolutionary behavioral patterns. But we experience, but also hypnotized to think like that, these evolutionary behavioral patterns as our personality. But again, personality is a construct, it doesn't really exist. So let's see what else they say. That's all history. Let's skip the history. Promotion. So this is an interesting line here. There has been limited formal psychometric analysis of the Enneagram, and peer-reviewed research that has been done has not been widely accepted within the relevant academic communities. Though the Enneagram integrates concepts generally accepted in a theory of personality, it has been dismissed by some personal assessment experts as pseudo-scientific at best. Now, a lot of the stuff that I do gets accused of being pseudo-scientific. So we used to this claim. So I don't think that if you claim the Enneagram is scientific, that's just a wrong claim. If people make that claim, then they make it pseudoscience. Because for pseudoscience, you actually have to have two characteristics. First, it is no science, and second, important people within the field promote it as science. So a nice science article at Stanford University Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and you can see, I'll enlarge it when I have the relevant part. Here you can see non-science posing as science. We have the two criteria. One, it's not scientific, like the Enneagram. Two, its major proponents try to create the impression that it is scientific. If that happens, then you create pseudoscience. But if so we can't help one. The Enneagram is simply unscientific, no doubt about that. But we can do something about two. We'll never claim that it is scientific. So if it's never scientific, hi Sheila, good to see you coming into the stream. If we can show that, if we never say that the Enneagram is scientific, it can't be pseudoscience. So, but it is reasonably carefully, formulated here. So we'll skip the history. That's not what we're interested in. We're also not that interested. Well, we like the Enneagram figure, of course. That's one of the most important parts of the Enneagram. To be clear, the Enneagram has been an inspiration for me for the neurogram. Let me show you the neurogram, the old English side. Those who are interested, you can also find a free report on testing your neurogram your neurogram type. So if you go to that, that's a place to be. That's the old one. I still have to translate the new Dutch one into English. So we do like the Enneagram figure, but well, the figure is quite well known. So here we have the 9 types, and they are based on the work of Don Richard Riso and Riso Hudson. And Riso and Hudson are the two Enneagram experts, self-proclaimed experts, that I actually don't like. I find them to be very mediocre. And these are the kind of people that actually mess up the field. They make shit up and then try to sell that. And they're probably more interested in making money than clarifying how the Enneagram is working. So let's see if we can find what they're saying. So let's go into this table. So the table is basically their whole ID on the Enneagram. And we can go type by type. see what they think about the Enneagram, and then discuss whether that is correct or not. And then maybe some viewers who know their own type, they can comment on it. So let's start with the perfectionist. Do we have a perfectionist watching the stream? If so, let me know in the chat. So first of all, here we have, they don't have the name. They say characteristic role. Well, I think it's actually the name. And it is, and there's a lot of discussion about the name. And I think that many of the names are basically wrong. Again, here, perfectionist is the right name. It's not a characteristic role. It's a name. And actually the name is... I said, misleading on purpose, but reformer just makes no sense. The perfectionist doesn't want to reform stuff. It just wants to make sure that everybody does as he or she wants them to do, but it has nothing to do with reforming. Well, ego fixation, I will take that as trying to be the main, the deadly sin. Each type has a particular evolutionary behavioral pattern where the ABC model works against him or her. For those people who don't know the ABC model, A stands for antecedents, B for behavior, and C for consequences. And research has shown that consequences have a much bigger influence on future behavior than antecedents. And the deadly sin is actually what... is being rewarded on the short term through the ABC model. So the deadly sin is behavior, evolutionary behavioral patterns that everyone can see as a negative, except for people who have that, I call it the brain type, but here you would say Enneagram type. Hi, Fake Image, nice to drop by. The deadly sin is actually something that is evolutionary behavioral pattern that is being rewarded through the ABC model with positive consequences on the short term. And that makes it very hard for people who start doing that particular behavior to quit it and do the opposite, which is actually the main virtue. And so here they would say that, but I have to check to see if they're not coming up with stuff later on. Well, the vice passion is the deadly sin. So let's say that ego fixation is just too much Freud. And so you have to figure out that this stuff was made up in the 50s, 60s, and maybe even a bit of the 70s. Well, when Freud was still a very dominant force within psychology, and unfortunately, Freud was completely wrong. Freud has been kicked out of the universities. Freudian psychotherapies have been removed from medical programs. So it was completely wrong. But you can see here still ego fixation is just bad Freud. So let's skip that. Then we get holy ID. The holy ID, well, perfection. Well, for the perfectionist, they like to achieve perfection. They never do, because their perfection is just way over the top. I mean, if it's a holy ID, it might be a platonic ID, but perfection with a perfectionist can't go wrong. A basic fear. This is one of the major mistakes that the Riso and Hudson have created for the Enneagram. That is the idea that each and every type has a fear. But that is bullshit. It is basically each and every type has stress, deals with stress, but it deals in stress in three different ways, either through anger or through fear or through sadness. And sadness has then to be taken as separation anxiety. So the sadness is especially the loss of loved ones or the loss of status or anything, the loss of the connection with other people. So the basic fear of the perfectionist corruptness is complete bullshit, or being bad or imbalances doesn't interest the perfectionist whatsoever. the perfectionist is busy. The perfectionist wakes up in the morning, sees how perfect the world could be if only everyone listened to the perfectionist. And the whole, whether the perfectionist needs corruption, whether it needs imbalances, whether it implies being bad, it really doesn't matter how the perfectionist is going to achieve this vision of what perfection looks like for the perfectionist. They're going to strive after it, and they're not fearing corruptness, imbalance, or being bad at all. They just simply are willing to do whatever it takes to achieve their goal. Basic desire, goodness, integrity, balance is basically also bullshit. Perfectionists are quite evil motherfuckers, I would say. And of course, with NLP, we learn that everyone is a fantastic person on the inside, but perfectionists often act out in a really negative, bad way. A lot of people have a lot of, negative experiences with perfectionists, of people with a perfectionistic brain. So they don't desire goodness, integrity, or balance at all. They desire for perfection. But even more than that, they desire for control. They're the ultimate control freaks. So that is what their real desire is. Temptation. Now, yeah, hypocrisy is you can only accuse them of hypocrisy if you really, at a very deep level, misunderstand what perfectionists are about. So if you, and this is why Riso and Hudson is such bullshit. If you make shit up that they desire goodness, integrity, and balance, and then you see in reality acting, and you say, oh, but in reality they don't act for goodness, integrity, and balance at all. Then you say, oh, these are hypocrites. No, they're not hypocrites. You've made shit up, and then reality turns out to be different, and that's the reason why you have to make even more shit up to compensate for the earlier mistakes. That is why it's such a bad theory, Riso and Hudson. Hypercriticism, well, it's not a temptation. Perfectionists, that's one of the evolutionary behavioral patterns, survival patterns. They do criticize a lot of people. Is it hypercriticism? Well, it's more criticism than the average person, but why call it hyper? Yeah, that's another value judgment. You just have to see the behaviors, understand how the behaviors work in the brain and in the evolutionary behavioral patterns. And then you can understand, okay, they're very critical, but it has to do with their push toward their realization of their vision of perfectionism. If there are any questions or remarks, please put them in the chat, then we can discuss those. Let's see what else we have. So there we go. Vice, passion, and then the next thing is virtue. Of course, virtue is the good thing. I said it's the main virtue. It's much more than virtue. It's the main virtue. Vice, passion is, just bad. It's just badly named. It's the deadly sin. It's much more than a vice or a passion. Passions can be quite positive, so it makes no sense. So anger is the correct one. Perfectionists are anger types who use a lot of angeriness and anger to get their way around. Hi, Grandron. Nice to see you again. If you have any remarks, please do. And so you should read, instead of vice, passion, you should read deadly sin. And it is not anger. Sorry, it is anger. But the virtue is completely wrong. Serenity is really, they try to come up with the opposite of anger, which is the good attitude, the correct attitude. Unfortunately, they came out with the wrong answer. Serenity has very little to do with perfectionist people. What it really is their main virtue, not virtue, but main virtue, is peacemaking. Peacemaking is what is really difficult for perfectionists, because they think that as soon as they're going to make peace, they're going to compromise on their vision of perfectionism. And that's the reason why they hate it. So it has nothing to do with serenity. It has to do with peacemaking. And then you have the stress disintegration. It's security integration. Well, for those people who know me, it has very little to do with disintegration, integration. It's another stupid Freudian way of thinking of it. Freud has been disproven long time ago. It is just bullshit. What happens is that indeed there are stress behaviors and not security behaviors. There are relaxation patterns. This is just how the brain works. The brain has 3 different modes. You can either relax, you can stress, or you can neither relax nor stress. And so you have 3 different behavioral patterns, or sets of behavioral patterns. That's the relaxed pattern, the neutral pattern, and the stressed pattern. If stressed, then perfectionists tend to behave as if they were negative type 4s, romantics. And when relaxed, they tend to act in a way that reminds you of positive hedonists. So, but here the important part is that the perfectionist will has his own evolutionary behavioral patterns in times of stress and relaxation. The point of the matter is that they actually do behavior that is quite like those positive hedonist or negative romantics, but when you look at it, in reality, it's quite different. But we just lack the right words to display it. Hi Sheila, good to hear that you have a perfectionistic brain, so you can hopefully confirm. You joined us a bit later. But I would especially think that this is bullshit. The basic fear, I don't think that there's a basic fear at all in perfectionists. I don't think they mind corruptness, imbalance, and being bad beyond the normal human stuff. Because I think that if in the end justifies the means, that there's no problem with corruptness, imbalance, and being bad. And I also think that you don't desire for goodness, integrity, or balance, but that you actually desire for control. So if you either can confirm or deny it, that would be great. In the meantime, we move to the type 2 helper. It's also named giver here, which is another bullshit name made up from the fantasy of Riso and Hudson. Helpers, first of all, the name is misleading. They don't actually help. They want to build up an image of being helpful rather than help. And they don't like giving stuff. They like getting stuff. So you better call them the receiver than the giver. Holy ID, freedom, will, makes no sense. Their basic fear, being unloved. Basic desire, no, that is absolutely love. So there's a question from Vegas Image. What's the difference between a perfectionist and a boss regarding tell us order what to do? Well, the difference is that the perfectionist is not so much telling others what to do as criticizing them. And the perfectionist would tell himself or herself what to do. So the basic outlook for the perfectionist is to turn inward and first blame himself or herself. First think, oh, I should have done it. So they're not really into telling others what to do. Of course, in the end, it will end up as telling others what to do. Because then they criticize them and they say, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. You should do this. And they will push their own vision of perfectionism onto others. But their basic attitude is first blame themselves, first do it yourself. Whereas bosses are not interested in achieving anything. They're just interested in, poking the bear. They just want to rile up the troops and see if they can get some fight going on. And so they're much more into telling others. So their outlook is much more outward by going, oh, let's see if I can provoke these people into having a nice discussion, which other people would experience as a fight. So it's completely different in my view. The perfectionist actually wants you to do stuff, but will project it onto himself or herself first, and only later see if you can be steered towards perfectionist by being criticized. Whereas the boss doesn't care what you really do, except let's see if we can get you to fight us. So hopefully that is an explanation that helps. So back to the helper. Okay, here, so the basic desire as to feel love, love and attention is what they want. Where the perfectionist wants control, the helper wants love and attention. That's absolutely so. But what's behind there is separation anxiety. So there's the feeling of sadness if they do not feel the love of others. So they don't actually fear. Again, that is how you pronounce it. But it's a matter of being so the same way that the perfectionist has much more anger in himself or herself. The helper is much more about sadness. So it's not the fear of being unloved. That the feeling of being unloved gives you this feeling of sadness. Temptation, deny own needs, manipulation. No, that's just. The helper does not really deny their own needs, and they can be very, very manipulative, but it will also be quite obvious. I always say they're the dumb liars. They try to lie to people, but then they make very dumb mistakes that can immediately be checked. So all that is quite inaccurate. Pride, though, is the deadly sin, so that's correct. And humility is the main virtue, so that's also correct. So here we can skip through it quite easy. Then we get to my own type. Of course, I'm always very happy to discuss my own type. So let's discuss it. Type 3, they missed the real name of the type 3, successful worker. Achiever, really. Again, they basically fall into the trap the successful worker type 3 lays for other people. They want to build an image of success. They want to have an image of being an achiever, an image of being a performer, but in reality, they often are not. They are actually quite satisfied with the lowest level of quality. They don't have to have a high quality. If it's sellable, then they are perfectly okay with it. Well, again, the vanity is just, I say, a evolutionary behavioral pattern that some successful workers do, but it is way too much, of what they are discussing here. Then let's continue with hope and law. Well, I have no clue where they come from, get that from. So this is the holy idea of type 3 successful workers, hope and law. And the successful workers have the antisocial personality disorder association. So hope and law is really who gives a shit. Again, worthlessness, really, they don't care about it at all. It is sadness. And the desire to feel valuable, it's also bullshit. It's not about it's not about feeling valuable at all. It is in the same way that the type 2 helper wants to feel love, wants to have love and attention, and then starts to help people or build an image of helpfulness in order to hope that people are going to love them and give them attention. In the same way, successful workers, type 3, are going to pretend or to create this image of success in order to have people love them. So it's not worthlessness that they are fear. First of all, they don't fear at all. That is about, again, it is all about sadness. Then, what was it? I have to check it because it's such a bullshit temptation. Again, it is such... it's so important to use the neuro-linguistic programming, the meta model, to understand all these names that they're giving, because these are all constructs. They're all abstracts. If you have a temptation and you put it into the wheelbarrow, there's nothing there. The temptations do not really exist. You have to look at the concrete, observable, measurable behavior that people do, and then pushing themselves to always be the best. Well, fortunately, they put it in scare quotes, because in reality, I already said, as soon as they can sell the stuff, they are more than willing to accept that as the desired level of quality. So they're not pushing themselves that much at all. Nevertheless, deceit is indeed the deadly sin. And this is also big time wrong. Truthfulness is very tricky, but not particularly wrong, but authenticity is completely wrong. That is authenticity has to do with type 4 romantic. It has nothing to do with type 3 successful worker. So the real main virtue for the type 3 successful worker is honesty. So the problem with truthfulness is that you have to accept truth as existing. And that is a big no-no. Truth doesn't exist, but honesty, telling sincerely what you find most probable is actually possible, and that is actually the main virtue for type 3 successful workers. There's another question. I do remember there are 9 levels about sane and insane. Well, actually, it is healthy and unhealthy rather than sane and insane. What do you think of that 9 levels? The 9 levels are complete bullshit, but there is a difference between healthy types and unhealthy types. As already is seen, that if people are stressed, then the negative behaviors come out. They tend to behave in a way that is different from their neutral behaviors. And their neutral behaviors will turn negative, and they will copy, or not really copy, but act as if or act like another type, and that will also be negative. So that's what, and if that happens quite a lot, especially in combination with doing the deadly sin behavior, then you get a very unhealthy person. And the other way around, people relax and they start to do their relaxation behaviors. Then the positive behaviors come out and they become quite healthy, especially when they also combine that with doing their main virtue. So to sum up, yes, there's a difference between healthy and unhealthy types. But no, there are not exactly 9 types. This is just, as we say in the Dutch, sucked out of their big thumb. It's complete fantasy. They just make shit up in order to sell courses. And it is simply not the way the world works, exactly 9 levels. No, people are healthy. They can be more healthy, less healthy. People are unhealthy, more or less unhealthy. But there are not 9 distinct levels. That is craziness. So let's continue. We're halfway the program, but not halfway all the numbers, so only 1/3. Again, it's pointless to call the romantic individualist. They tend to have evolutionary behavioral patterns that come across as individualistic, but that's only sometimes. Same goes with melancholy. That is what I do, but that is one of their evolutionary behavioral patterns, but it's not that defining. The holy idea of origin, well, the holy idea would be stupid anyway, but it would be authenticity if it was an idea. Again, their fear, there's no fear, it is sadness. It's the same with the helper and the successful worker. Romantics have also this urge to feel the love of others, and also the sadness if they don't feel it. And their strategy is actually to build an image of being a work of art, to be a very valuable work of art. So having no identity or significance, again, that is, it's completely wrong. They have neither of those, and they having no identity is much more related to type 3 successful workers than type 4, and having no significance. They do like to have social. They do like to have work that they want their work to be social significant most of the time, but not always. You can also have romantics who are quite cynical about it. They desire to be unique. Well, yes, well, again, the desire to unique is one of the behavioral patterns of the romantic, but it's not a defining behavioral pattern. The defining behavioral pattern is what they really want is justice. So they're much more into justice than in uniqueness. Again, it was what went wrong: the overuse of imagination in search of self. Now, it's complete bullshit. They just make shit up. Romantics are pretty much down to earth. They're really either most of the time busy with the whole planet or the well-being of everyone, and I say or in the cynical romantics, they're busy with their own little life, their little world, but it's always very concrete, very down to the real earth, not using imagination or search of self that much. There's a question. Hi, Iron Monkey. Good of you to join us. What are your main type and wing? Well, I don't believe there is a main type. I think there's only one type. And my one type is because it's so much tied to the brain, is type 3 successful worker. Just discussed it, you might have missed it. And my wing, there's only one wing, it's the type 4 romantic. I am quite into the whole romantic shit compared to an average type 3 successful worker. If you have any more questions about my type, please chat them, put them in the chat. I'm more than happy to discuss it. So let's continue. So envy is the correct deadly sin for type 4 romantics. They are very envious. They strive to this ideal better world, but they are constantly checking whether other people are not further ahead of them. And actually, when they do compare it, they feel that everyone else is further ahead. It's not a question from fake image. Is it possible to be type 4 without having anything with art or nature? Yes, that is possible. Or can you consider house music with art and big buildings as nature? I'm not sure. You can definitely compare house music with art. That's not an excellent reason to plug my own techno parties that I stream live through Reddit on Saturday night or Saturday evening, to be correct. So if you're into techno, you can listen to me playing techno music on Saturday night. So I consider that art. I think my mixes are very complex, very nice, and a work of art. But I don't think that big buildings count as nature. But the important part here is that you do not need to recognize everything from your own type. So what's much more important is actually to be able to know which is the completely crazy, stupid behavior that other types do, where you go, okay, that is so stupid, so crazy, I would never do something like that. And that way you eliminate by crossing out all the other types. And then if you have crossed out 8 types, then there's one type that's left over, and that's you. So if you cross out the 8 other types and you end up with a type 4 romantic, even if you have nothing with art or nothing with nature, and you like house music and you think it's quite artful, and you like big buildings as nature, then yeah, sure, you have a type 4 romantic brain. Iron Monkey would like to know how you determine on the fly what type someone is. Well, I've developed something called the 3 questions method. Let's see if I actually can find the old website. It's very old. I'm not capable of finding that, but we have an alternative. So this is something, the 3 questions method, and you can actually try it out yourself on the influence.amsterdam website. So I have to hide your screen. So if you look at this website, I'll give you the link. And you can see on the bottom, the right bottom, the bottom right corner, you can see this little chat-like balloon. If you click on that balloon, you will get the 3 questions test done by a bot. So that is the most easiest way to do it on the fly, other than being an expert like myself, because often I can see it in how people behave or how they look or how they talk or how they behave. So for me, it's quite easy to see it in 2 out of 3 people, even before they know it themselves. And 1 in 3 is very subtle, and then even I have to spend a lot of time to figure it out. So let's continue with the program. So I do want to quit somewhere near 8. I don't think we're going to make it to 8. Where are we? So yes, envy. So envy is the deadly sin for the type 4 romantic. But equanimity, emotional balance, is not the main virtue. The main virtue is actually satisfaction. So what the type 4 romantic has to learn is extreme satisfaction. Also, I have not said that this far, but with the main virtue, but the main virtue always has to do the extreme version. So it is very important to say to the perfectionist, type 1, that they need to go for extreme peacemaking, that the type 2 helper needs to go for extreme humility, that the type 3 has to go for extreme honesty, and the type 4 romantic has to go for the extreme satisfaction. They have to be satisfied with their life, but it is very difficult for type 4 romantics because they motivate themselves by dissatisfaction. So the envy is pretty much dissatisfaction, and they use that to build a better life. But they have to learn to be satisfied with what they have today, even though they know that tomorrow they're going to work for a better life. But then tomorrow they have to be satisfied with what they have tomorrow, etc. So let's continue with type 5. Again, the names, it's very bad. Investigator, observer, it's stupid. It's actually the analyst. Type 5, the analyst, and the, analysis, of course, for analyst is good. Their omniscience, transparency. So type 5 analysts strive to know something 100% before they do it. And they want to take in a lot of information, but it's not about wanting to know everything. Fake images type 5 or 4. Well, let's see. And so type 4 would not be interested in collecting lots of information, lots of data. They would just be interested, okay, but how can we apply what we know and what we are able to do to actually improve the world? But the analyst doesn't care about that. They basically say, no, I want to know a lot because before I act, before I start to do stuff, I want to know that particular subject 100%. So it has nothing to do with omniscience in the sense that they want to know everything about everything. No, they only want to know everything about whatever they're going to do. And they're not transparent at all. So actually, see, Iron Monkey, that's how we figured it out. The moment you find a particular behavior, so in this case, okay, you have to be, we want to act and make sure that we improve the real world. Then Fake Siemens went, that is stupid behavior. I would never do something like that. So he crosses it out, and then we end up with someone with a type 5 brain. And so type 5 are not transparent at all. They use the data, all the information that they collect to build up their own worldview, and that worldview is actually quite out of touch with reality. So it's not transparent at all. It is very difficult to understand for other people. Now, at least type 5 is a fear type, so they actually have fears. But it's not a fear of helplessness. It is not a fear of being incapable, of incompetent. It is actually a fear of losing their autonomy, losing their personal freedom. There could well be, and that's why they collect information, is because they feel that if they have enough information that they can actually win battles with other people, and by winning those battles they can protect their own autonomy and personal freedom. Again, they're not interested in that much in mastery and understanding, even though they collect a lot of information. This information is needed to build their own defensive system to make sure that they can protect their own autonomy and personal freedom. I have to check I have forgotten about what here's. Oh, the temptation. So the temptation is replace direct experience with concept. Well, in fact, type 5 analysts have a very difficult connecting with real experience. They are always into thinking mode and looking for facts and theories. So yeah, it's not a temptation. The deadly sin is correct, avarice. Again, this avarice has to be understood, not as literally as avarice, but this avarice is where they collect and grab all the data that they can, and they're then just going to sit on it. I always compare them like dragons. So where dragons fly out and then grab gold of people and then fly back to their cave in the mountain and are going to sit and protect their gold, even though they don't do anything with it. Type 5 analysts are going to grab information and data and fly to their cave and then sit on their information. And if someone else wants to have some of the data or information, they say, okay, go away, go find it yourself. So that is avarice. Iron Monkey, good to see. Type 3 with a wing 4. That's the same type as I am. So that's the best type there is. Just happens to be the best type. But the detachment is not the main virtue for type analyst at all. Yeah, well, we're on the same page. So detachment is not the main virtue at all. In fact, detachment is actually one of the behavioral patterns, one of the important behavioral patterns of the analyst, but it's also quite bad for the analyst. So the real solution for analysts is extreme sharing. The moment they grab information or data, they immediately have to figure out, okay, who can I actually, whose life can I improve by giving him or sharing this information or data with them. So sharing or extreme sharing is the main virtue. It's not detachment at all. Detachment, again, it's a behavioral pattern of the analyst, but it is not the solution. It is not the way to heaven on earth that all the main virtues are. So let's move to type 6, loyalists. Good. At least we have a good name. Loyalist is the correct name. Loyal skeptic is stupid, even though they're very skeptical. That's one of the behavioral patterns of the loyalist. Cowardice is again wrong. If there's a coward in the whole system, it's the type 7 hedonist. The worrying part is correct. It's one of the behavioral patterns. Faith is completely stupid with type 6. And this is how stupid can you be? Again, Riso and Hudson are this stupid. They are just mediocre, self-proclaimed Enneagram experts who have a very poor understanding of the whole system because they come up with shit like this. Because how can you be a skeptic and have faith at the same time? It's nonsense. The loyalists don't have faith at all. And they are very skeptical, and they have this attitude. First, I have to see it and have to have lots of proof, and then maybe I'm going to start believe it. But faith is really stupid. It would be way too risky. They would never go for faith. It's just stupid. Again, the loyalist is one of the fear types. So here, because they think that everyone has a fear, it's actually correct. It has nothing to do with being without support or guidance. It has to do with concrete fears. So loyalists, they are masters of creating all these disaster movies and scenarios inside their head, and that gets them really fearful because they can see everything that can go wrong. What they desire is not to have support and guidance. What they desire is safety. Their temptation is in. This is also stupidly how bad this is. How the fuck can they create this bullshit? So this is really, 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 really bad. If you're a loyalist and you're reading Riso and Hudson, you get hypnotized in a very negative way with very bad suggestions. So actually, the loyalist is not that indecisive. Loyalists have a long process, often 9 months, of deciding, of coming to a conclusion. But the process is very much a evolutionary behavioral pattern that helps loyalists. And here, by saying indecision and doubt, by putting a negative on it as a temptation, that is really bad because it's the way loyalists work. It is how they process information, how they process data, and that should be embraced rather than put into a negative light, as Riso and Hudson are doing. So Fear is the correct main of deadly sin. At least the deadly sins are quite good. It's also quite easy to link to them. But courage is completely wrong as the main virtue. Courage is very negative. So what is courage? And courage is what is actually a behavioral, evolutionary behavioral pattern of loyalists already. That's not something that they need to learn. What they do is they see all the bad shit potentially happening inside their mind by doing all these negative scenarios and all the bad shit, what they're imagining themselves experiencing in the future. And but then they say to themselves, okay, but if I let the fear get to me, then I get nowhere. So what I'm going to conjure up a lot of courage, and I'm going to step over all the fears, and I'm going to act anyway. But it costs a lot of energy, a lot of negativity, a lot of bad feelings. So the real main virtue for loyalists is actually power. They need to feel internally their own power. They need to see that even if bad shit happens, they are powerful enough to solve things. So power is the main virtue, and courage is just stupid. So let's continue to 7. The enthusiast. Well, I have a whole theory that type 7 hedonists are not enthusiast at all. They act in a way that make you, as one of the persons close to them, enthusiastic. But in fact, they are not enthusiastic at all. They don't feel that much. And the epicure is a correct name. I prefer the hedonist, but the epicure is basically the same name as the hedonist. It is whether you which particular philosophy you endure, but hedonism and epicurism are quite close. Opportunism, we can forget about it. Novelty and fulfillment, well, it makes, even though hedonists do like novel stuff, it's one of the behavioral patterns. It is not that important to them. Then I forgot what kind of bullshit they had come up with. The basic fear. Well, in fact, type 7 hedonists are also a fear type. So again, here they have actually a type who. So fake image. Wow, seriously, they are not that enthusiastic. Well, it depends how you define enthusiasm. I define enthusiasm as a feeling inside your body. And that often is reflected in how you act on the outside. So they act really enthusiastic. They go, hey, yeah, let's party, hey, woo, we'll do wild things. But that actually is not how they feel inside. So if you define enthusiasm as actually feeling enthusiasm, they don't feel that much. They are much more busy exploring the world. The outer world, also the inner world, but we don't see that. They explore the outer world by acting as if they're enthusiastic, because they feel that if they act like that, you will go along. But that, that is actually a trick they use to fool people. So they are not congruent. I don't think, I agree. I don't think that hedonists are that congruent. So that is well stated. So their fear is actually has nothing to do with being unfulfilled, trapped, or deprived. It's all bullshit. Their fear is actually first on the surface. Their surface fear is about missing out, fear of missing out. They're the ultimate FOMO types. They fear that there are parties going on that they're not participating in. But their deep fear, the deep fear, that's actually being confronted with their problems. So they hate it when people start to poke in their private life and go, hey, hedonist, how about this part? I think this is a big problem, right? They hate it when you do stuff like that. So that's what they really fear, being confronted with their personal problems. They desire to be satisfied in content. Well, they desire fun. It's much easier than that. Their temptation, thinking fulfillment is somewhere else. Well, of course, this is their fear. This is not a temptation. This is their fear that they're missing out, but it's only on the surface. Gluttony is indeed the right. There you go. Suso syndrome, me. Good to hear. That's you. Uh, we have a discussion, so maybe you can help out. My idea is that type 7 hedonist, the epicure, actually acts out really enthusiastic and can be quite chaotic and stuff like that. But they don't actually feel it enthusiastic inside of them. So you're saying, and it's true, not gonna lie, okay? But I'm not sure what you are referring to. So if you want to have a comment about whether you act enthusiastic without feeling enthusiasm, then that would be great to hear. There's another question: are they congruent about FOMO, fear of missing out? Yes, they have a real fear of missing out. They do like to participate in everything. They often have a very busy schedule, and if two great parties conflict with each other, they will do weird stuff to see if they can participate in both, even if it's physical, almost impossible. So, being enthusiastic and getting mad if people confront my problems. Okay, good to hear. Still, I have a follow-up question. So I make a difference between acting enthusiastically and feeling enthusiastically. And the question is, do you do both? Or are you only acting enthusiastically? We'll continue anyway because the time is running out, but I'll finish all 9 types. No worries about that. I can sleep another day. So the deadly sin indeed is gluttony, but again, this is not a... yes, great. So Yasu syndrome, me is confirming what I'm saying. Yes, I'm acting to try to impress others. I want them to like me. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for that. So gluttony is, well, they do like a lot, eat a lot and drink a lot. In fact, they can drink quite a lot without anyone noticing. And they're very good at, how you say, processing alcohol. Also other drugs, of course, they like it all. But it is more a gluttony towards life. They want to experience everything at least once, and actually all the negative shit that you can experience, if it's new, then they will, how you say, reframe it inside their head, say, well, okay, it's negative, but it's also something new. So that's, I can experience something new. That's great. And so they will turn everything that is negative to a positive inside their head. And that is quite bad, because they will accept lot of bad shit happening to them, where other people would draw the line and say, no way, I'm not going to accept this. Again, the main virtue is wrong. It is not sobriety, even though they might hate sobriety. It's actually moderation. It is extreme moderation. So we don't want to have hedonist type 7s to become sober. We want them to do extreme moderation. And of course, this is literally extreme moderation: eat less, drink less, use less drugs. But it's also moderation towards life. So rather than want to do everything at least once and changing everything negative to a positive just because it's a new experience, that is all quite bad for type 7 hedonists. And instead, they need to have this attitude of extreme moderation, where they go, okay, I can enjoy life, but in small parts. I don't need to have it all or experience it all. I can just stick with the little things that I know that I'm enjoying. And so, for instance, rather than having a new girlfriend or a new boyfriend every 3 months, do extreme moderation and stick with one for 30 or 40 years. Same with jobs. Rather than having a new job every 3 or 4 months, stick with one job for decades, if it's a good job, of course. So that's the extreme moderation that we love for type 7 hedonists. Then type 8. Well, challenger, protector, it's all bullshit. It is the type 8 boss. Again, it is misleading. All the types, all the names of the types are misleading, but they're misleading on purpose. The challenging behavior is part of the type 8 boss behavior. It's one of the evolutionary behavioral patterns. Also in the protecting, but protector is way too good at it. So bosses like to challenge, they like to stir things up, they want to have fights going on, because otherwise they find life too boring. And they do protect the underdog, but they only protect the underdog because they feel that it is their role in life to protect the underdog. But they're not going to protect anyone else. So if you're not the underdog, you have to fight for yourself, according to the type 8 boss. Well, vengeance, yeah, they are vengeful types, type 8 bosses. But again, this is only a evolutionary behavioral pattern, not a defining one at all. So they do have a list of people that they still want to take revenge on. They're quite vengeful, but they'll like their revenge cold. Revenge is a dish best served cold, as they say in the US. They will take years and years before they actually take revenge, but they are capable of holding a grudge. Well, the holy idea of truth to a boss, the boss really doesn't care one iota about truth. They only like to know what are the rules. They don't care whether the rules are corrupt or bad or whatever. They like it called the rules. They fear being controlled. Again, type 8 bosses are not a fearful type at all. They are an anger type. So they really don't care about being controlled, harmed, or violated. In fact, they don't like being controlled, and they will get angry rather than fearful when they're being controlled. But they do like to be harmed and violated. So the type, we'll see it when the deadly sin is there. But the type 8 bosses, they do like to feel pain. And because then they know they're alive. So if you harm them or if you violate them, then they feel pain, and then they know they're alive. So they actually like that. This bullshit that they're not liking it. To gain influence and be self-sufficient, that would be desire. Well, actually, it's power. It's a different power than from the type 6 loyalist. For the type 6 loyalist, it's personal power, the power that comes from the inside, about feeling good about yourself, feeling powerful, coming from a place of power. The power that the boss is looking for is basically the power to dominate the group. A thing they are completely self-sufficient is would be the temptation. Well, it is basically nonsense. Let's skip it. Lust is the correct deadly sin, but it is because of the forcefulness that is behind it is completely wrongly interpreted here. It's first of all literally sexual lust. The type 8 bosses are really physical types. They love their body, and they actually hate being sick, and because their body is their fortress. They have their own space. You have to get out of their space or you get whacked, and that's why they hate being sick. But then they feel that the fortress is betraying them. But they're also into, because they're quite physical, they are into lust, as in sexual lust. Most people like sex, but type 8 bosses like sex a lot more than the average human. But for more than lust for sex, it is lust for life, which I already explained. They like to have, they like pains, they like have a tough and hard time, because then they know they're alive. And it has nothing to do with innocence. Innocence is not their main virtue at all. It's just totally pointless. They're just going to abuse you if you think that they're innocent. That's just stupid. Their real main virtue is quietness. So they have to quiet down, they have to calm down, they have to relax, and rather than just go, oh! No, quiet, calm down, relax. Calmness, quietness, that's are the main virtue for the type 8 boss. Finally, we're already past 8 o'clock. We're going to the type 9 mediator. At least, yeah, we have a good name, the mediator. But the peacemaker makes no sense. The mediator is a mediator against their wish. The preference of mediators, type 9 mediators, is to actually grab people who are fighting, smash their head together and say, okay, now quit it! But they know that if they do that, they add to the disharmony of the whole situation. So rather than fighting it out, they'll go for mediation. But they're not into making peace at all. They're about restoring harmony. And it doesn't matter how it will be done. Because we already seen that the peacemaking is the main virtue of the type 1 perfectionist. So if the peacemaker should be named anywhere, then it should be type 1 perfectionist. So there's a question from Iron Monkey. Since you're also on type 3, how do you deal with type 9 as your stress level? First of all, as an early stress warning system, long before I feel stressed, I notice in my behavior, because either I'm doing stupid things that make no sense, or I'm very lazy. You'll see that it's the deadly sin. And if I recognize that, I go, oh, I am stressed. Let's stop stressing and let's do the loyalist behavior. So that's easy to do for me. Of course, I've also done a lot of neuro-linguistic programming. So I'm most of the time very, very relaxed rather than stressed. But it's important to stop stress as soon as possible. You can make use of your stress behaviors. So if I'm stressed, I tend to write books when I'm stressed, because but I will write silly books or books without any commercial value. But then I'm stressed, go, write. And I would write a book in like 3 to 6 weeks. I've written more than 20 books, but most of them in a relaxed manner. A couple of books in a stressful way. So you can make use of your stress behaviors, but it feels quite bad to be stressed, and it is unhealthy for you. So the easiest way is basically relax, and you can either do that by doing the type 6 loyalist behaviors on purpose, or you can use neuro-linguistic programming to help you relax, and then the loyalist behaviors, they will come automatically. If you want to learn how to relax more, there's a whole series of the free ABC NLP practitioner on the Twitch channel. And actually, I've collected all the movies so far. So if you go to blog on the Influence Amsterdam page, and there's the ABC NLP Practitioner International Edition, then here are all the videos that help you relax. I'll put the link into the chat. That's the great thing about what the Enneagram teaches us, is that you don't need to think about how to stop stressing. You basically, the moment you start to relax, then your behaviors change automatically. Well, you're welcome. That is the easiest way indeed to stop stressing and start relaxing. It's just the reason why I always combine NLP with the Enneagram. You Unlimited, by the way, is my book on the Enneagram and about neuro-linguistic programming for those people who are who want to read up on all the techniques to actually relax. Please order You Unlimited through Amazon or any other of the online bookshops, and there you get both the explanation of the Enneagram and coupled with all the NLP techniques to help you relax. So let's see if we can finish it. So we have the mediator. It's the correct name. A peacemaker has nothing to do with it. The ego fixation, indolence, daydreaming. It makes no sense. It is stupid. It's Freudian nonsense. You can just forget about it. Mediators procrastinate. So indolence could be a bit of that. Their idea is not love, but harmony. It is loss, fragmentation, separation. Again, mediators, one of the important behavioral patterns, evolutionary behavioral patterns of the mediator is connecting to people, building bridges, making sure everyone becomes friends among each other. So there's that. But yes, again, that is not a personal loss. It's not fragmentation. It's not separation, because they are also an anger type. They're not a fear type. They're not a sadness type. They're an anger type, and the separation has to do with sadness, not with anger. Wellness, peace of mind. Well, they do like peace of mind. They often feel this energy wave through their life. It often goes like 3 or 4 months, lots of energy, then little energy. And when they have little energy, they want to have peace of mind, but they also want to have quietness. They want to slow down. But wellness makes no sense. It's just fantasy bullshit made up by people thinking rather than looking to reality. If the audit was a temptation, avoiding conflicts, avoiding self-assertion. Well, actually, type 9 mediators can be quite assertive. They can be quite, let's call it assertive. Especially when they're relaxed, they're very assertive. But they are still open to good arguments. They never close their mind. And there are avoiding conflicts, yes, but that's much more about promotion of harmony than avoiding conflicts, because mediators are actually quite good at creating problems. They're not an anger type for nothing. Even though the anger is really repressed, they often put their feelings of anger in the fridge rather than act on them, but it is still enough to actually create problems. Even though they're a problem solver, to be clear, it's just that they also can make problems. Sloth is indeed the correct deadly sin, but sloth has very little to do with disengagement. Again, Riso and Hudson are so stupid, they're so bad, so mediocre, they self-proclaimed Enneagram experts. They're just trying to sell this stuff to people without any real understanding of how the Enneagram worked. The sloth or laziness, as more understood, is literally laziness. Mediators are prefer to be lazy over tired. Nevertheless, it has much more to do with a psychological laziness, where mediators say, okay, I really should work at myself, but just too much, forget about it. So they're quitters. So their laziness has to do with quitting. It has to do with giving up. So that's quite different. And their main virtue is not action at all. It is extreme discipline. So what mediators need to do is get into an agreement with themselves. Say, okay, this is a very strict contract. I'm going to follow these rules and never ever deviate from them. So their lazy mind, this is again, or the lazy brain, this is again the deadly sin speaking. They are great at finding loopholes within their own rule set. And so they can come up with these rules for themselves, but then go, yeah, today's Sunday, so it doesn't count. Oh, now I have friends over, so it doesn't count. Oh, it's raining, so it doesn't count. They come up with all these loopholes to get out of their rules. And that is actually laziness, the deadly sin. So the extreme discipline is to make rules for yourself and keep these rules or abide by these rules at all times without any exception. There's a question from John. Their holy ideas come from Alma's 9 facets of unity. Will you discuss Alma's also another time? Well, this is the first time that I hear from it, so I'll have to quickly check to see if it's something that I can discuss. Well, it's a book actually, so there's not a really good website for it. So I fear that I'm not going to discuss that much because it's a book. So Fake It Simic has a question. So they get angry but don't show it. How about getting angry for type 7? Do they get angry? Yes, they do. Hedonist, type 7 Enneagram types get angry when they're stressed. When they're stressed, they move to type 1 perfectionist. They start to do the behavioral patterns that are quite like the behavioral patterns of the perfectionist. And then they do get angry. But it's only a stress behavior. The moment they start to relax, they stop stressing, and then they also stop the anger. So far we have seen the 9 types summarized by Riso and Hudson. We have seen that most of it is complete bullshit. Riso and Hudson are mediocre, self-proclaimed Enneagram experts. The best way to deal with Riso and Hudson is run away. ignore their theories, get rid of them. The sooner we stop thinking in terms of the Enneagram the way Riso and Hudson want, the better for the whole field. There's another question. If people have questions, please put them in the chat because we're finishing for today. Well, I found it a great stream, so I'm going to continue streaming in English on the Enneagram on Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central European Standard Time. So Veka Siemens has another question. Joost, which other sources or authors besides your books, I expect your information, which you consider very reliable about the neurogram, the Enneagram? Well, I made up the neurogram, so there's only one author who's reliable, that is me. The Enneagram, I like the work of, so we can see it actually in the pages. So Helen Palmer is quite good. And so here you have Helen Palmer. And Claudia Naranjo is quite good. And if I say quite good, I actually think they also suck quite hard, but they suck considerably less. But the problem is that I'm not a big fan of the Enneagram anymore. The Enneagram has been inspiration to me, but it's just everybody is still repeating the things from the 70s, and they're not critical at all. They're not looking at actual behaviors. So the best one that I like, but of course he has very little to do with the Enneagram literally, but I still feel that is the best source if you want to read up more than just what I produce. That is actually, let's see if I can come up with it. Professor de Jong, all his publications are online. Let's make it bigger. So you have cybernetic theory. I'll put the link in the chat. That's just me. So that is a much better source for information. I actually, if you look at my model, here it is. So this is my model. Yeah, it's still missing the Enneagram, but you can put the Enneagram sign here in the middle. This is called cybernetic Big Five theory, or the neurogram. And this is completely science-based. This is the cybernetic Big Five theory as explained by Professor de Jong. So I feel that de Jong is by far the best source if you want to read more on this kind of theories. This is the way of the future. Well, Riso and Hudson are the wrong way and a completely dead end. And Helen Palmer and Claudia Naranjo are the old way. So hopefully that will answer your question. Any other questions? Well, first of all, let me thank you all for viewing and following me. When you follow me, that supports the channel a lot, and that will motivate me to make more of these kinds of things. Iron Monkey, yeah, great that you are following me. That is really so much appreciated. And much of what we do here is in Dutch, so I can prepare you if you're English speaking. But Sunday on 7 p.m. Central European Standard Time, we do the NLP, the ABC NLP practitioner in English. And Thursdays, the Sundays and Thursdays, all the streams will be in English. So coming up next week, Thursday, we're going to do more about the Enneagram. I'm going to look if I can see and find something that is of interest to discuss. If people have suggestions, then I'm more than happy. Thank you for your compliments, Sheila. If there are no more questions, no more remarks, then we're done for today. Thank you all. See you next time. Bye-bye.